Hello, I'm Mike Moore, and welcome to the How to Win podcast. These podcasts are based off 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 14. It says, now thanks be unto God who always causes us to triumph. Listen, I am so happy to have you with us today. This is How to Win, and I have my beautiful daughter, Tiffany, with me. Listen, we're going to discuss today building strong relationships. But as you can see, we have a new set. We have a new format. I want to give a shout to my goddaughter, Jennifer Sumter, for decorating our new set. We have a new podcast format. Now, think about it. The How to Win podcast is about giving practical answers from God's Word for everyday life. So the goal is not going to change, but life and is about change, and relevance is about change, and growth is about change. So being encouraged by my daughter, who is the director of Mike Moore Ministries, we decided we were going to have a new format. And in this new format, we're going to do some discussion. My daughter and I are going to discuss different topics. I'm going to do interviews, and then I'm going to have a one-on-one and share some of my thoughts, the things that God put in my heart. It's going to be wonderful, and you're going to enjoy it. In fact, I want you to let us know what you think about this new format that we have and How to Win. We're going to be talking today about building strong relationships. Now, think about this. I was meditating on this. Strong relationships. Relationships are broad. We have family relationships, we have work relationships, we have friendships, we have romantic relationships, we have business relationships. Relationships are a fundamental part of everyday life. In fact, we are our relationships. The scripture says that he that walketh with a wise man will become wise. It says the companion of fools will be destroyed. We become our relationships. What are you talking about? We become our relationships because our relationships, whether they're parent relationships, whether they're marital relationships, our relationships impact our lives. And in fact, we become the input, the advice, the counsel, the instruction that we receive from our relationships. So we're going to be talking about relationships. Two main areas. We'll cover a lot of things because we're just going to run with this. Two main areas that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about communication in relationships, but we're going to also talk about balance. How do I balance all the different kinds of relationships? It's so important. Balance is so very important. Good to have you with us, Tiffany.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Now, before we go into the relationships, let's talk about this new format, because relationship between me and you is kind of like how we got into this format of doing more of an interview style. So how you feel about this new?
I feel excited. I feel excited about this new format.
But listen, you gotta tell the people how you almost went.
Hey, listen. I'm gonna fix it for myself. She's my director. She's the director of my podcast and does a wonderful job, and beautiful too. But she has been on me about changing our format. And so I was kind of pushing back a little bit. But as I say, life is about change.
Well, good. I'm glad you changed.
You know, we go from seasons to seasons.
Yeah.
So this is a new season.
Yeah.
And then growth is about change.
Of course.
And I want to grow.
Yes.
And then think about it. Relevance
Yeah.
is about change. So I want to be relevant. So I will admit that you had to work with me.
Get on them, y'all. Get on them.
To make this change. But listen, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to still share principles from God's word.
And we also want to hear from y'all too. So if you have anything that you feel is wisdom as well, also be leaving, questions or comments in the chat, because we will be, discussing some of those things. Now we talk about communication, okay? And we had us a little barrier in our communication.
We had a barrier in our communication,
Okay.
but
we came through.
we worked through
We worked
it.
through it. So what do you think are some common barriers you feel like when it comes to communication, whether it be relationship, work? What do you think are some of the common barriers?
Listen, it's a lot of barriers, and using myself. I think sometimes pride is a barrier.
Oh.
Yeah, I think.
Do you now?
I think pride can be a barrier in
You
relationships.
felt like you was in pride?
Well, let's talk about pride in general.
Okay, talk about pride in general.
In general, pride says, I know what's best.
Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
And when you think you know what's best, I don't know if it was deep pride in terms of not listening to you, because we're going to talk about listening.
Yeah.
I don't think it was that. It was the desire to stay committed to what God wanted me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you helped me to see that I can still do what God wants me to do, but just in a different way. So sometimes it's pride. Sometimes communication can be blocked by prejudice. And I'm not talking just about racial prejudice or ethnic prejudice, but sometimes we can have preferences prejudice. We prefer a certain thing over another thing. So sometimes it's our prejudice. This is my way. This is the way I want to do it. And we don't always listen to other people. But then sometimes the communication can be blocked by distractions. Distractions. It can be blocked by busyness. Sometimes even in marriages, and I've been married for almost 46 years next month. Sometimes we just get so busy in our routine. We get so busy in what we're doing that we're not communicating. We're not talking.
Okay, so you said a lot. So let's unpack a little bit of it.
Let's unpack
the first one, you said you talked about pride. So when you were talking about that, I feel like you're not a prideful person. Like, if most people would say, if they talk to you, they wouldn't say, "Oh, he's a prideful person." So how did you recognize, or how would someone who may not be a prideful person recognize that it's pride? Because I think a lot of times we do feel like we're trying to follow what God's telling us to do. And so to me, I feel like that can be a thin line, because on one end, you're doing what God told you to do, but it also can be kind of a pride thing. So how did you kind of recognize that?
Well, in terms of my journey, sometimes we can have a way, and we make a way or a method the way.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? For example, if we're going from here to downtown Birmingham, there's a way to go from here, this spot, to downtown Birmingham. But there are multiple ways of going downtown Birmingham. So sometimes I think we close our minds to different ways to do things, and it can become a roadblock. It's not always pride. Sometimes it could be stubbornness. Sometimes it can be a narrow view. And you can be given input that can help me be better. And sometimes our spouses can be giving us input to help us be better. Sometimes our coworkers or our subordinates at work can give us input to help us be better. And then sometimes it can be, if you're in business, sometimes our customers can give us input to be better. So, there are so many blocks to communication, but I think the key, though, is to keep talking.
Yeah.
You know, just keep talking. My wife and I, as I said earlier, have been married almost 46 years. Next month, we'll be married 46 years. And early in our marriage, we had what we would call marital problems. It wasn't physical violence, wasn't profanity, it wasn't any kind of stuff like that. It wasn't infidelity. We just had some issues as it relates to communicating.
Yeah.
But the thing that we had going for us, we kept talking. And sometimes people shut down the communication channels and they can't make the breakthrough.
Yeah. You also pointed out prejudice, and I guess I kind of think about it from my own perspective. So I'm not married, I'm a single person, right? And so when you get used to doing things your way for so long, then when you have to go into a relationship, and then you have that word submit that some women like, some women don't like, right? And then you see a person who may be stuck in their ways. For a single person like myself, what do you feel would be some wisdom on not feeling prejudice because you've been doing it your way for so long?
Well, Tiffany, I think that's a good question. I think people in our audience deal with that going from singlehood to marriage.
Yeah.
Can be very challenging based on how long you've been single because you've been used to doing things your way.
Yeah.
You know, in our modern culture, the culture that we live in now, I like the word better than submission. And I'm not trying to change the Bible. I'm not trying to change the Bible. I believe in submission. But really, when you read the Bible in Ephesians 5, it talks about mutual submission.
Yeah.
And so since many people, even Christians, don't understand the concept of submission, I like the word, and here again, I agree with submission, so I'm not talking against it. I like the word partnership.
Yeah.
I like the word partnership because marriage is a partnership.
Yeah.
And I think for a single person that's been single for a while and then you enter into a relationship in marriage, I think there should be some premarital counseling.
Yeah.
But premarital counseling is temporary. I think before you just jump into a marriage, because you love each other, and that's great, I think you should take some time to study marriage. I think you and your fiance should take some time to read books, video, look at podcasts, conferences, and begin to renew the mind as it relates to marriage, because marriage is a different animal. So it really, we talking about communication,
Right.
when you're single, you communicating with yourself. I
Yeah,
mean, you know,
right.
you're saying, okay, what did I want to do?
Right. You can
You
go
know,
where you want to.
you go
eat
where
what
you want to,
do.
how you
don't
want
have to. Worry
to.
about nobody. Travel.
But see, marriage is different. It's
Yeah.
a team sport.
Yeah.
So communication is critical
Yeah.
when it comes to a team sport.
Do you think that there's a time frame? I know we're going off, but we still talking about
No,
relationships.
we talking about communication. We talking about relationships.
Yeah. So do you think there's a time frame for people who are dating to where it can be? Because, you know, some people say you have to see a person in each season, right? So you want to see if they're a good communicator, a good listening. Do you think that there is a time frame for how long a person should take before they get to that next phase?
I don't think there's a time frame like it has to be a year.
Yeah.
Or I don't think there's a time frame like it has to be 2 years or whatever. I do think time is very important.
Yeah.
The reason I wouldn't say a year or I wouldn't say 6 months, I wouldn't say whatever, because it depends on your dating relationship.
Right.
You know, I've seen couples who began to practice and develop in the relationship even before they got married.
Yeah.
So, but some people, it depends whether you're being directed you're being driven by your own lust or your own emotions. I think time is so very important, but I can't say how long it should be. But marriage, from God's perspective, is designed to be for life.
Yeah.
When you're doing something for life, you need to prepare yourself.
Yeah.
You need preparation to be able to enter into some. We prepare ourselves. We go 4 years to college.
Right.
We go for maybe 4 more years to med school or whatever because we are preparing ourselves.
Right.
Marriage is the closest relationship you'll ever have. So preparation, taking time, submitting to others, listening to others, gathering information, doing your homework, because it's a different animal.
Yeah.
And I think that determines
Yeah.
the time.
So I'm gonna change it a little bit because we're still talking about relationships. So I want to jump into listening a little bit. You took a whole year of teaching on leadership. So if you have not seen the leadership teaching on the YouTube channel, you can go to Mike Moore Ministries YouTube, or you can go on the app and you can check that out. But I thought that was really great that you talked about leadership. But when you think about leadership, why do you think that listening is an important thing as leaders to listen?
I connect the dots. We're talking about communication. We're talking about relationships. And communication, I could connect the dots. Communication is the lifeblood of a relationship.
Yeah.
You cut off the communication, you can't have a relationship.
Yeah.
So let's talk listening. Communication is not just talking. Okay. If you're in a relationship and you do all the talking and you're always talking, that's not a relationship.
Yeah.
You know, that's a monologue. I mean, you just giving your opinion. Relationships are giving and taking.
Yeah.
They are giving and taking. So let's talk listening. Listening is the key to learning.
Yeah.
Think about that. If I'm in a relationship with anybody, it can be a romantic relationship, it can be a marital relationship, it could be a employment relationship. The way you learn is to listen.
Yeah.
You know, there was it's interesting. A well-known host said this, famous host, said this. He said, I say to myself every morning that what I say, and I'm paraphrasing, I can't learn anything from what I say. He said, if I am to learn, then I have to listen.
That's good.
If I'm going to learn anything about the person that I'm in a relationship, whether it be a boss, whether it be a subordinate, whether it be a spouse, whether it be a child or a parent, if I'm going to learn anything about that person, I have to listen. Listening is important to understanding.
Yeah.
How can I understand you if I don't listen? How can you understand anybody? How can you understand your pastor? How can you understand your flock? How can you understand anybody without listening? Because we're not mind readers.
Right.
And then finally, listening is important to connecting. Because really, a relationship, a good relationship, and we're talking about strong relationships, there's a connection. There's a connection. And listening is how we connect.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you a question.
Okay.
Tiffany, if we want to develop a relationship,
Right.
okay, and you're communicating to me, but I never listen,
Yeah.
how does that make you feel? And you can take any you can be anybody. It can be romantic, it can be employer, supervisor, subordinate, it can be business. You can go anywhere you want to.
So if I feel like you're communicating, if I'm communicating to you, but you're not listening,
Right.
well, one, I guess you have to determine what does listening, like how have I determined that you're not listening? Is it your body language? Is it the way that you're saying stuff?
Okay, you talking to me, and I'm keep talking. See, you talking to
Yeah.
me, and I'm
I
what?
would be annoyed.
Okay, you would be annoyed.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would be?
I feel like you wouldn't value my time. Like you're
Okay,
not valuing my time.
okay.
Yeah.
And in other words, you would feel disrespected.
Right.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so listening, and this will help you in any relationship you're involved in. Listening is one of the highest forms of respect.
Yeah.
On any level, listening is one of the highest forms of respect.
So let's talk about respect because I know that's a big thing for men. Like they say, women need love and men need respect. What does disrespect look like for y'all?
Uh, I think disrespect for men is generalization.
Okay.
When you say all men,
Okay.
to me that's disrespectful because I'm not all men.
Yeah.
Okay, when you don't give me an opportunity to prove myself, I think that's disrespectful. Don't conclude ahead of time that I can't make it happen.
Gotcha.
I mean, give me a chance to make it happen. And I think it's disrespectful when you micromanage me.
Yeah.
I mean, if you micromanage me, and it can be a supervisor, it can be a wife.
Yeah.
If you're micromanaging me, that is disrespectful.
Yeah.
It's disrespectful for in a marital situation for you to compare me to your dad
Mm.
because I'm not your dad. You didn't marry your dad.
Okay.
You married me.
That would be that. I can see myself kind of leaning towards that comparison thing because I feel like you the goat, so I can see myself kind of leaning toward that comparison of you ain't doing it quite like my daddy doing it, so I can see
Right.
that.
If we talking about that kind of relationship,
Right.
because you and I are close,
Right.
if you're talking about that kind of relationship, what will help you in the relationship, because I know you value me
Right.
and I know you esteem me,
Yeah.
I don't think looking for your dad is the key.
Yeah.
I think looking for the values. I think
Yeah.
looking for values.
Yeah.
I think that's how you, and that's true in any relationship.
Yeah.
If you want to have an agreement in a relationship, values are important. The scripture says, how can two walk together except they be agreed?
Right.
Agreed on what?
Right.
What should we agree on? Do we agree on we like the same kind of movies?
Yeah.
That's superficial. We like to travel. That's great because you want to have that. That's real good.
Yeah.
But the thing that will cause agreement in any relationship is there has to be some consistency and similarity of values.
Right. And so I guess that's what I mean by like it's not a comparison of like they got to be a preacher or do this or do that. For me, it is some of the values. So like for you value integrity, you value faithfulness, you value quality time with your family and stuff like that. So those are some of the things that I look for. So I could see how a person who has a great relationship with their father, how it can kind of get into that place of comparison. So that is something that for me, I would have to work on not wanting them to be you, but also like letting them be themselves at the same time.
Because in relationships, a killer. We talked about roadblocks. A major killer is comparisons.
Yeah.
When I used to pastor, when I was pastoring, talking relationships. I wanted to have a good relationship with my congregation. and I had one.
Right.
And I had a good congregation, and we related to each other. Hugged them. They affirmed me, supported me, gave to me, listened to me.
Yeah.
What were hurtful, though, is when a wife
Compared.
compared their husband
Right.
to Pastor Mike.
Yeah.
Comparisons, nobody wants to be compared to anybody else. Nobody wants to be compared to anybody else.
Yeah. When I think about, because you also was talking about and I was going to bring it up, but we kind of went in our own direction, but you were talking about the respect.
Tiffany, I'm enjoying talking with you.
Enjoying
Are
it?
you enjoying
This
our
is
discussion?
Good. Well, this is good.
Okay.
I was thinking about when you were talking about the respect thing, and so I went to a panel, and one of the guys was talking about how his wife didn't allow him to live out his vision. He had some dreams and goals, and I don't know if it was because of financial reasons or whatever. But one of the women was saying that it's for us, it's not that we don't want you to live out your dreams and goals. Now, some women may be like that. But for us, it's clarity on where we're going. You know, like, so again, it goes into that communication. So for people who are married, how important is, because even like when I think about you and Mama right now, you know, y'all got some things that y'all are navigating through. Like, you're traveling more, Mom's doing teaching and different things like that more. So now it's like y'all have had a direction for so many years of where you were going. Now it's a different direction of where y'all going. So is it a rediscussion of clarity of like where we're headed on now? Like, what road are we going to now? Because I think just like in any relationship, as you get older, you still have to have certain type of conversations of like clarity. Where are we going? Where are we headed? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And, you know, we're talking, and we may pull in a certain context, but the principle applies to a lot of things. So we may be talking about this. For example, I'm in a new season in my life in terms of, for 46 years, I pastored. So you primarily in one location, do some traveling, but I didn't primarily do a lot of traveling. And so my wife and I, we were basically, our home base was here.
Yeah.
Well, now my wife has retired, but she still works camps and she deals substitute teaching, and I travel more now.
Yeah.
Okay, so seasons are important, and we'll probably get into that in another
time.
another podcast. But back to communication.
Yeah.
Okay, back to communication, back to clarity of what we're doing, and to have clarity, we have to communicate. Okay, but there's a real key. Real key that I think is really critical, because any relationships you adjust.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And being flexible and how to adjust. And then for us, and I think it's true for most people in relationships, mutual respect.
Yeah.
Okay, I respect what my wife, and her nickname is P. She has a boy nickname. I respect her vision and her goals and what she enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
She enjoys substitute teaching. She enjoyed camp with kids. She enjoys that. She enjoys traveling. She enjoys her space. Okay. Even though I'm traveling, I'm not saying to her, you have to be with me everywhere I go.
Yeah.
And no, to me, that's disrespectful. Okay, that's disrespectful. She wants to be with me sometime, but at the same time, I want her to do some things she want to do at this time. So in any relationship, if it's going to be a strong relationship, and that's what we're talking about, and I know we're pulling different principles together, you have to have mutual respect. We used to teach in premarital counseling. I think they still teach this. We taught uniqueness and acceptance. Is one of the classes that we taught. We talked about why you want to get married, motive, but we also talked about uniqueness. God created all of us to be unique. Even if we're married, we're still unique individuals, okay? But we have to, if we're going to be strong in our relationships, we have to accept the unique, God-given character and personality of the person, their visions, their dreams, their goals, even in friendships.
Yeah.
I bet you have friends, and I bet they have different goals. They're in different vocations. You know.
I have different seasons. I'm in different seasons with my friendships.
Okay,
now.
and that's true.
Yeah.
In relationships, you have different seasons with relationships.
Yeah. I think.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, since you're asking me questions, is there a time, and then we have to talk a little bit about balance.
Balance, right.
You want to talk about
We
balance?
can talk about balance.
Okay.
Before you go into that, I was going to ask you about the
'Cause
balance.
I'm going.
Because I was going to ask you, how do you navigate, because you're in a new season, whether it be if you newlyweds, been married for 30 years or 40 years like you have, you're in a new season. Now, how do you balance doing what God told you to do and then your relationship? I feel like you've done a good job with it over the years, but I think you're traveling more now. So
Yeah, but the principle balance should be a principle of life.
yeah.
Whether you're single,
Yeah.
whether you're married, whether you're a business person, or just have a career vocation, balance is the key to success. And if you don't have balance, something is going to be out of whack.
Yeah.
So that balance brings us into several things. It brings us into the nature of our relationships, okay? Because relationships are different.
Right.
Okay, let's talk nature for a minute.
Okay.
There's a relationship that I have with my wife. There's a relationship what I have with my children.
Right.
Relationship with grandchildren. Relationship with friends.
Okay.
Relationship with ministers. So we all have different kinds of relationships.
Right.
Okay. The key to balance those relationships is priorities and categories.
I got you.
Let's talk that. Categories and then priorities. Okay. So if you have a circle of relationships, you're going to have some relationships that are close. Some relationships that are not as close. And then you're going to have just other relationships that you may occasionally engage in.
Right.
The closer the relationships, the more the investment.
Right.
Okay? The more the investment. You're not going to invest in peripheral relationships out here like you would invest in close relationships.
Right.
And then the issue of priorities. You have to set priorities.
Let's talk about priorities.
Okay.
Because I got a question. Because this is the thing that I feel like I only see this in the church community, church environment. When people get married, they feel like their single friends, they can't be a priority anymore. So it's kind of like they kind of distance themselves from them. And I feel like to a certain extent you should leave and cleave. So I do believe that you should do that. But I've always had this like, I don't really feel like that should be a positive way of doing things, because Jesus in his ministry, Peter in his ministry, they were all single. So I guess the thing is, or the question that I'm wondering is, like, what do you think about prioritizing as a married couple, but then also allowing yourselves to have people who may not be married, that's a single person?
Well, when I talk about priorities, I have a set of priorities, and I'll share you what those priorities are. God should be number one. If you're married, your spouse should be number two.
Right.
Okay? If you have children, your children should be number three.
Right.
Now, here's where we have a break with others. Because, for example, if you're not married, then you have to prioritize it a little bit different.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because a husband or a wife is not a part of the picture.
Right.
So you have to prior. Now, if you have kids now and you're single, then your kids have to be a priority.
Right.
And then you decide, is family a priority? And then friends are a priority.
Yeah.
So it's different for different people. But for me, it would be God, my wife, my kids. I would put church next. The only reason I would put church next, my relationship with my church, because the information that I'm hearing on a regular basis, if you're in a good church, is going to color all your other decisions and
Yeah.
how you make decisions. So I will put church, and then I'll put extended family, and then I'll put friends, so forth and so on. So when you have your circle, then you have to make sure that you're giving time, money, and energy to those relationships based off priorities.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can't have too many relationships. You can have too many.
That's good.
And if you got too many, then you're really not going to be able to build a strong relationship in any of them.
Right. Right. I think that is a good point. I felt like I had too many in the beginning. I actually had a friend tell me I had too
Where
many.
is the time going?
I know it's going by fast.
Oh my goodness, Tiffany.
Okay, so because we could talk for hours.
We
Y'all
can-
have to catch us on the next.
we can talk for
The
hours.
next How to Win podcast, where we're going to talk about some different things. But as we get ready to wrap things up, what are some? Because we talked about communication, we talked about listening. What are some advice or wisdom? Because I feel like everything that we talked about has been advice or wisdom. But what are some practical ways people could be better communicators? Is there any resources or anything like that? What would be the advice that you would give to our listeners?
I would say relationships are so very important that you need to develop your knowledge base as it relates to relationships. See, we read books and we listen to podcasts and look at videos and all that, but we need to be intentional when it comes to relationships. For example, I think a great book that I've read by Dr. Darius Daniels
Yeah.
is Relational Intelligence. It's a wonderful book.
Yeah.
A great book. There's another book that I would recommend by Dr. Randy Ross. It's called Relationomics. It's a good book.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of, you can go to bookstores and all that. And you can keep listening to my podcast because, see, my podcast is...
Right. You
my
got all the resources. They
Listen,
can go on your app.
You can go to Mike Moore app. You get a lot of resources.
Right.
But the principle is, if you want to go there, and I mean by develop yourself in any area, you have to go with your head first.
Yeah.
Go head first.
Yeah.
In other words, take the time to develop yourself in another area. Now listen, okay, we're about to wrap it up.
Okay.
Hey, did you enjoy our time of discussion? Because remember, this new format, we're going to have discussions.
Right.
My daughter and I will be talking on different subjects.
Right.
Okay, different themes and subjects. I'm going to do some interviews. I got some people that I'm going to interview, and then I got some thoughts. God has always given me thoughts. I'm going to share some of my thoughts. So it's going to be different.
Yeah.
But our next episode is going to be discovering your purpose. Discovering your purpose.
That's going to be good.
It's going to be wonderful. You don't want to miss it. Now, make sure you let us know. Let us know in the chat. Let us know, what do you think about this new format?
Yeah.
Isn't she beautiful? Isn't she wonderful? This is
Yes.
my sidekick. I said, listen, girl, you've been behind this camera. I want you up here. I want you
got
in
me,
front.
You got me on there. You pushed me out there.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
like you push me. Come on, give me some props.
You did. Yeah, I gave
Give me
you
some props.
You pushed
Bam.
me. You pushed me out there.
Listen, we're out of time, but we got a lot to discuss and a lot to talk
Yes.
about. And we look forward, this is How to Win. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Bye.
Are you ready to break free from the chains of anxiety, stress, and depression? Mike Moore, author and founding pastor of Faith Chapel and host of the How to Win podcast, is here with his new book, Help, My Mind is Under Attack. Learn how to overcome attacks on your mind and live an emotionally healthy life. Grab your copy now. Available as ebook on Amazon and paperback on MikeMoore.com. Embark on your journey to complete mental health and emotional peace.